Angel Heart Radio programs should not be used to replace your legal or medical advice. Welcome everyone to Angel Heart Radio. You are our focus. We want you to know that you matter in the world and that you're important to the world. We're here to remind you of just how valuable and needed you are right now. Help us to help others. If you like what you hear, tell your friends, post, tweet, pin, let everyone know how amazing Angel Heart Radio is. So again, welcome to Angel Heart Radio. Powered by love, Angel Heart Radio is sponsored by AngelLight777.com.
Welcome, everyone, to Angel Heart Radio. I'm your host, Deb Goldberg, and it brings me great pleasure to be here with you today, and it's an honor to serve you in the highest way that I can by bringing you messages of divine love and blessings for your life. You are dearly loved, cherished, and blessed. We have a great show for you tonight, but I wanted to give you some information first. Like the call-in phone number is 347-202-0232, 347-202-0232. And there are two other podcasters on Angel Heart Radio. Tonight, I'm filling in for Annette McCoy. Her shows are typically on Tuesdays, 8 o'clock p.m. USA time, Eastern, and Wednesdays, 10 o'clock a.m. Queensland time. And Annette is on vacation today, so I'm filling in for her, and I get to do a great show that she has with Janet Hickox monthly. The other podcaster is Anaya Joyho Lilly, who is the founder of Angel Heart Radio, and her show airs every other Friday, USA time, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern, and Saturdays, 10 o'clock a.m. Queensland time. You can also reach Anaya at AngelLight777.com. And if you are interested in knowing more about me or working with me or my books, you can find me at DebbieAnnGoldberg.com. You can find my books under A Divinely Ordered Life is a 3-book series on Amazon. Tonight's show is Mars Retrograde, how it affects your forward momentum. And I want to introduce to you Janet Hickox, who is also has a radio show herself. She's a podcaster, and she will tell you all about that. And she's an astrologer, and I'm sure you know her if you've been listening to Annette's show. She does great readings. I have had one in the past myself. Welcome, Janet Hickox.
Thank you, Deb. It's great to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you here with you, and I get to spend some time and get to know you better since you are a regular monthly guest host on Angel Heart Radio, and I think what you do is fascinating. So I'm very honored to be here with you. And I did read a little bit of your story, how all of this came to be, and it's pretty fascinating.
Are you talking about how astrology just sort of plopped into my awareness and through several different odd encounters with the book?
Yes. Yeah, how awesome. And I think it's a great story to also let people know that these things happen. I've gone through something similar myself, and so that you can help others know that if you are paying attention, there's always something guiding you and bringing you to your divine calling, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, the way I like to describe it to people, is, especially in human design terms, is that in human design, we speak consistently about 3 different ways of knowing. For the most part, our world is very much engaged in the logical mind. And everything about logic is, from what we can see, touch, taste, smell. If you can prove it, then it exists. And in human design, that's only one way we have of tapping into knowingness. There's another way, and it is our intuition. And intuition is something that's instinctual. It happens in the moment. And it's really when we are aligned with our higher self, and our higher self is bringing us this information in. But there's a third way of knowing in human design, and it's literally just called knowingness. It is, I don't know how I know what I know, but I know. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's as valid as logic, and it is as valid as intuition. It's just harder to describe. I mean, actually, I guess it's easier to describe because it's just I know. I don't know how I know. I just know. But it's harder for people to accept that. And that was my challenge, indeed, is that, you know, I went to school in the science field. I was going to be a biology major, a chemistry major, to teach, you know, biology and chemistry. So I came from this background that was very scientific and very logical. And here is this outrageous thing happening to me. And, you know, I like to think that I live a magical life and that I'm highly spiritual.
Whoops, you're cutting out a little bit.
Didn't last long, thankfully, and I'm back. So,
all right. That's awesome.
I know. Sometimes, you know, it's just almost a joke. And Mercury's not even retrograde, people, so I have no idea what's up with that.
Wow.
Yeah, it was short-lived, thankfully. And anyway, so we were talking about the 3 ways of knowing. And you can imagine having my scientific background and the things that I was learning from a scientific world, how disconcerting it was to suddenly realize that there was this knowledge that I'd had all along that was being revealed to me in this sort of download fashion. And it was the most fascinating thing. Thankfully, I have an open mind. And I was able to move through that without thinking I was insane. But it did take me a while before I actually started doing readings with people in a way that where I would pay, you know, they would pay me for it. Because I thought, how would people pay me for something that I didn't really learn? I didn't go to school for.
Right.
So it was a very strange time. Very strange.
What's a great story, though. And then here you are today. Doing this, and I think that most people I think everybody has the ability to have, everyone has the knowingness. It's whether we're open to listening to it. And the download is, I believe, you know, comes from the divine, and we get that in different forms. And so, you know, I believe that's where all the downloads come from.
Well, definitely. Oh, definitely,
yeah.
Definitely. And it's just a matter, I think you're right. You know, we're all available to get these kinds of downloads. So there's not a problem in getting them. I think for us, it's more of a problem of allowing it to come through. And like I could have easily just dismissed the whole thing and never picked up the book and actually opened it and read it. I could have just kept putting it back on the shelf and ignoring what was happening. But luckily I didn't do that. And I wonder then how many other times, you know, in my life and maybe in the people around me when these magical things are happening, but we're ignoring it. We're just saying it's not happening.
Yes. Yeah. I think, you know, and, you know, my ears were closed for so long. I was shut down, you know, internally until I was 56. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, oh, what is this? I got woke up. And so, yes, I believe that we're being spoken to all the time, whether that's through something you hear or a download or you just know it. This information comes through. So this is going on all the time. It's whether we are available, whether we're receiving.
Right, exactly. It's like, did you turn the receiver on, and did you turn the volume up just a titch so you could hear it?
Yeah.
And that's what's happening. And to me, that's what makes life magical, right? That, you know, and to go on with that story, you know, fast forward from, I think that happened my son was 10, so it had to have been about 2001 that was beginning to happen for me. And if you fast forward to 2010, a woman was coming to this little town that I live in, and she was a psychic, or she is a psychic. She's still around. And she, I thought, you know, I don't know why, but I really feel like I need a session. So I signed up for a session with her, and during this session she says, I don't know what it is exactly I need to tell you, except here's what I see. And she starts describing these sacred geometric symbols, and she said, I think it's a type of astrology, and that it's something that you're not aware of right now, but it is something that's going to have a big impact in your life and that you are really going to take off with. And I went,
Wow.
okay, thank you very much. I have no clue what you mean, but hey, you know what? It's there, and I'm just now going to, I'm in receipt of that information, and I'm just going to have to hold and see what happens. So that was in, I think, probably April or May of 2010. And it took until November of 2012 for it to appear. And what it was, I was on a radio show just like this one, kind of, not this one, but one like it, where we were talking about some of the changes that were coming up with the end of 2012. And this man was on air, and he said something about human design being astrology, a new kind of astrology. And I went, whoa, wait, back up. What are you talking about? Because I'd never heard of this. And so he reveals this whole idea about human design. And so I'm in the background on my computer going to, this human design site. The moment I saw the chart, Deb, it was like I got chills all the way from the top of my head all the way down to my toes, because I recognized in that moment that this was what this woman had been talking about in my psychic reading.
Wow.
And it was another one of those magical sort of moments in my life. And literally it rocked my world. Not only because of that psychic connection and it being, something that people, were starting to learn, but also because of the fact that I had been living my life incorrectly, and I had to make some big changes. Right? I was living inauthentically.
Wow.
And living inauthentically then meant that I needed to make some changes in order to be able to, greet the world on the terms in which I was meant to. And by the way, in 2012, I was 42.
Wow.
No, I wasn't. I'm lying. That's a wish. That's a wish. Well, let's see. How old was I? I would have been in close to my 52, I think it was. See, that would have been, how many years ago was that now? 6 years ago, I'm 56, so I was 50. So it came at my Chiron return, that's right. And I swore then that I was on a mission almost to open up everybody's minds about human design. And so every reading I started to do, I would say, hey, I'm doing this new sort of reading. Would you mind if I talked a little bit about that to you as well? And of course, people were like, oh, yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Right.
So that's what I did. In early 2013, I really began using human design, and I've been using it ever since. But I also am fairly unique in all of this because I can take both of those systems, astrology and human design, and I can weave them into a coherent story. And it just gives me so much more access to you as a person and your energy and how you're designed to live your life, as well as the more mechanical function of the planets moving through your chart and highlighting various, events and opportunities and challenges. And so it's a wonderful kind of combination that I'm using when I deal with my clients on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that's awesome that, you're able to bring a story to life for somebody to understand what the reading is. And that's all coming through knowing all of it. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You're right. And, it just so happens that in human design, there are these circuits. And circuits are just a group of energies that are together and they work in a similar fashion. And the circuitry, the way that I'm connected, is through the knowingness circuit. So it makes sense that I just know what I know, but I don't know how I know what I know.
Right.
except that it was this magical thing that happens in my life. And so today, as we begin to talk about what is very astrological in terms of Mars and slowing down now to move retrograde, we are also going to be able to look at some of the energies in human design that we will be working through as well. And that's what I think is really beautiful about this whole thing, is that, yes, I can sit here and tell you mechanically Mars is turning retrograde, and that means everything that that planet normally represents is turned inside out and yada, yada. But I can give it more dimension at this point in time, because I can tell you the gates, which are just the areas of your DNA that are being lighted up right now, and will be lighted up as Mars does this little dance, and how that will affect you and what it is that you need to do about that. So
wow.
that's why I say this is, intense. This is a big, big subject. So let me see if I can break a couple of things down. And by the way, I have a tendency to just keep talking. So if you have a question, just jump in and ask me.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll just keep talking.
Okay, so Mars retrograde, what does
Correct.
this mean for somebody like me that doesn't really know very much?
Great question. So let's do this, Deb. Let's break it down into two parts here. Let's look at what does it mean for a planet to be retrograde. What does that mean? Mm-hmm. Well, in the sky, we, from our position on Earth, have this view of the world, or this view of the heavens, let's say. And in it, we see these planets that if you watched them every night, you would see them kind of moving around through their ecliptic plane. Well, every once in a while, a planet that moves either slower than the Earth or faster than the Earth either passes us by or we pass it by, and for the time being, it appears to be moving backwards through the sky. Of course, it is not doing that. It is that we have gone beyond it, or it's past us, and it's a mirage, if you will, or a trick of the eyes, an illusion.
An illusion. Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Awesome.
So the planets aren't really moving backwards, but from our position here on the Earth, it appears that it is. So the net effect is that all of the energies around that planet then begin to move from their outward expression to their more inward expression. So for however long that planet sits retrograde, and the closer the planet is to the sun, the quicker the retrograde period is. The farther the planet out, the longer the retrograde period. So, for example, Mercury is retrograde 3 weeks at a time, and Venus, when she retrogrades, I want to say it's about 4 weeks, and for Mars, it's 8 weeks. And on, all the way out to Pluto, which spends about 5 months of every year in retrograde. So that just gives you an idea of the time scale involved. So for 2 months this summer, we are going to have Mars in retrograde. And Mars itself only retrogrades every 28 months of the year, of time. So we haven't had a Mars retrograde for 28 months.
Okay.
And it is coming up. So we have this idea of a retrograde. It kind of reverses the energies of a planet. So now the second piece then that we got to understand is, what does Mars represent? What does it mean, right? In our charts, if we're looking at Mars, we are looking at the energy of dynamic forward motion. We are looking at the energy of assertion, right, of action, of our ability to assert ourselves into the world or to begin something. It's very masculine energy. So it's the masculine side of doing, as opposed to Venus's more receptive feminine energy. So when we think of Mars then in retrograde, the action that we take isn't so much on the outer world now, but on the inner world. And that means, like, let's just say you're getting ready, you have this business that you want to launch. During Mars retrograde, it is not a good time to launch that business, right? It is not. Why? Because the energy's backwards, it's inwards. and it means that it would be a better time to, let's say you're going to open up a restaurant, to design the menu, to design maybe the layout of the floor of the restaurant, to maybe if you've already launched it, in terms of this is an idea and it's already, getting close, maybe you're training your people that are going to be in the restaurant, but it's not a time to launch that business. If you're writing a book, it's a great time to proofread and edit and maybe do rewrites, but it is not going to be a great time to publish that book, to put it out there in the world. And that can be very annoying to people. That can be very disconcerting to have the action kind of, it's like putting up a stop sign, right? Or better yet, how when you put your foot on the gas pedal and your foot on the brake at the same time and you spin your wheels? That's what Mars retrograde can be like. It's that foot on the brake, foot on the gas, and I'm raring to go, but because I've got this foot on the brake, I can't really go. And it can be a frustrating time for people. So the best way to deal with a Mars retrograde then is to just be at peace, to just realize that the action is not going to happen in the way that you think it's going to happen. And some people out there are not going to know that this is what's going on, and they're going to keep pushing, and they're going to keep pushing, and they're going to get frustrated, and then they're going to get angry, and then there's possible explosions as people, totally don't understand why it is things aren't working the way that they should, or that the way that they normally do. So it's up to us, the people that are in the know, to understand what's going on and to help our fellow human beings on the planet to be at peace even when things get frustrating and conflictive to what our normal way of taking action is. And let me give you the date.
That's what I was just going to ask you for. What is the date of this?
Okay. Now, good. Another really good question, Deb, because there's 4 major dates that I'm going to give you. So when we're dealing with a retrograde, there is the approach as the planet begins to slow down from our perspective on Earth. It's not really slowing down. It just appears to be slowing down in its forward motion. And then there's the day that it actually changes from direct or forward to retrograde. Then there's the time of the retrograde. And then once the planet turns back to forward motion again, we have a few weeks left where it's picking up speed and traveling through the territory that it's already been in before the entire cycle is done. So you know how they say if you get a cold, it's 3 days coming, 3 days here, 3 days going? Well, that's kind of what happens with these planets. So Mars entered its retrograde zone at 28 degrees Capricorn on May 12th. So last Saturday. Well, the Saturday before last, because we're already into the new week. So on May 12th, it entered that retrograde zone. So we're already going to see some signs on the horizon now about what may be slowing down, about what maybe we need to hurry up and finish. Maybe we're feeling the gas pedal, because on the instinctual level, we know that something's going to slow us down if we don't. On June 26th, the planet Mars turns retrograde at 9 degrees of Aquarius. Now that means really it only moved forward 12 degrees from May 12th until the 26th of June. And that is definitely a slower forward movement than Mars would normally make. Now it will be retrograde from June 26th until August 27th. At which time it will go backwards through the zodiac degrees from 9 degrees Aquarius, where it turned retrograde, all the way back to 28 degrees Capricorn, where it entered its retrograde station on May 12th. Does that make sense? Okay. And then the whole cycle will be done on October 8th, when it leaves it goes past the 9 degrees Aquarius zone. So it seems like a very long time period that we might be dealing with this energy. So what are some things that we can do right during this retrograde time? what can we do now that will support us during that retrograde time? Number one, learn how to handle pressure and conflict in your life more effectively. Right? The usual blow-ups aren't going to work. They're going to be major. So we all have to learn how to handle that pressure and that stress. Maybe we need to slow down, and maybe we need to engage more meditation or yoga or singing or something that, brings us peace, as opposed to the usual actions that we take in our day-to-day life. It's a great time to let go of, I'm putting in air quotes, lay down your swords, right? Maybe it's a great time to release any of the energies that you have emotionally tied to conflict with someone in your life, to conflict that you may have in the workplace, or any kind of conflict that's going on, even in our outer world. It will be a great time to put away all the weapons and let cooler heads prevail, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a time for us to avoid accidents. In mundane astrology, which is just a type of astrology, Mars is the planet that rules metal. And that means anything metal is a possibility of causing harm because of the retrograde. So that might mean knives, guns, automobiles, right? That can be, if you're, not conscious and aware of where you are and what you're doing, and, if you get yourself into a rush, you may not realize it, and something happens accidentally with something metal. I remember one time in my life, and this was before or just as I was learning astrology, I got into an accident the day that Mars turned retrograde. And lucky for me, it was a very mild accident. I was backing out of a parking place in a bank parking lot, and in my blind spot, there had been a car that I didn't see, and I backed right out, and she hit me. And,
Wow.
So not because I was necessarily rushing at that point in time, but I was kind of like done. So I was just getting in my car and I was going to go. It was an empty parking lot when I got in my car, and I looked behind me. I couldn't see her, and I just pulled out without the usual kind of caution that I might have. So slow down and don't rush to be able to avoid accidents. And we're cutting up vegetables, right? We got our little sharp knives and we're cutting those tomatoes. And for a moment, our mind wanders, and next thing we know, slip, and we cut ourselves. Much more likely under a Mars retrograde.
Okay.
This is a great time to work on practicing patience, right? If you're not working on practicing patience, then the world is probably going to show you ways that you need to have more patience, right? Whether it's with someone in your life, whether it's with a skill you're learning, or things that keep, happening when you're trying to, like today, me and this whole GDPR thing that I'm trying to work on to get in compliance with European standards. And every time I did something, I did it wrong. And my patience was being tried today for sure. So you just have to have more patience, but not only with yourself, but with others.
Okay.
A good percentage of the population out there isn't aware that this is going on. They are not in the know, right? So we have to be more patient. Go back to an old sport or an old exercise routine or something that you used to do that supported your health. It's an awesome time to do that. Like I used to have every day I had a routine where I did yoga in the morning and then I went for a walk in the afternoon. So my work day was bracketed by yoga and a walk. I don't know how I got out of that, but I did. So I'm thinking, wow, great time for me to get back into the swing of doing something like that. This is a good time. It will be a good time to find the inner courage that you need to confront something or someone in your life, not out of anger, but out of courage and strength of character, to be able to stand on your own 2 feet independently, self-sufficiently. So find the courage to do something that rights something wrong in your life. Face something with courage that you have not been able to face before. For instance, if you've been afraid to do a video and get out there on a website and talk about what your work is, this is a good time to overcome that natural fear and do something like that.
Okay.
Make peace with a man in your life. Mars represents the masculine principle, and it is up to the feminine at this point of time to cool things down, right, to make peace. And so if you have a brother, a spouse, a cousin, a friend, a boss, somebody that you have been at odds with, try to find a path to peace with that person during this time. And all of these things work, of course, to keep us from, dynamically pushing ourselves into things. You know that saying, like when you're beating your head against a wall, but you just keep trying and trying and trying. And what don't they say? That's like the very definition of insanity, doing the same thing but expecting something different.
Right.
Right. A great time to find awareness around that. Where are you pushing, and things aren't happening? Maybe it's time to just stop, just come to a stop and be at rest. Be like the yoga pose, still mountain or still mountain, and just observe what's going on and not try to keep pushing your action forward there. So a lot of little juicy things that can happen. The only thing that really worries me for people is the ones that really don't know what's going on. And they're out there hustling and bustling, and they're unconscious about it, and they create accidents or they create conflict. And we just have to forgive them and move on because, not everybody's going to know what's going on.
Sure. Everybody's just kind of involved in their own life and doing and going and doing the best they can, and not realizing that there's energies out there that are trying to get us to do something else.
Correct. It's like the natural breath that we take, right? There's the in-breath, and then there's that out-breath. Well, this is more of the in-breath. This is that time where we're moving the energy inward. We are bathing our cells within our body with oxygen and not expending the oxygen, if we can use that as a model or a way to look at this. And this is just an interesting summer all the way around. If I can transition a little bit away from just Mars retrograde. I just did a video show 2 days ago, maybe 3 days ago. Actually, it was last week. I did it on Thursday last week. And I called the show The Summer of Retrogrades, because literally there are going to be, at one point, if you count the asteroid Chiron, there will be 7 bodies out in the sky in retrograde during the summer.
Wow.
So if you ever wanted to take the summer off, if you ever wanted to take a long vacation, this is the summer, people. Do it, right? Do it. Because when you have this many retrogrades going on, it really does stop that forward motion in many ways, depending on the planet. So Mars, of course, is action. Jupiter is also retrograde up until July 10th. And Jupiter retrograde stops our growth on the outer world, our expansion on the outer world, and brings it inside. Saturn is also retrograde. Neptune is retrograde, and Pluto is retrograde. And all of those are retrograde between June 26th and July 10th. And on July 5th, Chiron joins that and becomes the 7th planet in retrograde motion. And then just as we get rid of one, just as Jupiter turns back to forward motion, Mercury goes goes retrograde,
Wow.
right? So just as we think we're going to break up that impasse, not so fast, right? So we really don't get past the retrograde summer until well into August, and maybe even into September before all of them, except for a couple at that point. And it's normal to have, 2 to 4 retrograde at a time. We don't screech too much when there's 5 of them because usually it's only for a week or two. But 7, oh my goodness, right? That's a lot of stop signs being held up, a lot of caution signs being held up. So
very interesting. So for myself and a friend of mine are, writing a book together. We're trying to put a course together. And so what you're saying is we probably shouldn't put anything out there until after October.
Or at least after August 27th. And of course, we'd have to look at your personal charts, right? Because what if you have Mars retrograde by birth, right? Because there's also that, equivalent of that in our personal charts. If you're born with Mars retrograde by birth, you're in a better position than the rest of the world because you have it retrograde. I have Mercury retrograde in my natal chart. I do much better under the retrograde than I do at the wobbly ends when things are changing. And that I noticed that the whole time I've known astrology about that. So sometimes it's easier for people when they have the planet retrograde by birth. Now, having said that, if you did launch a program or a teaching platform or something like that, just know it may take time to gain speed, right? Don't give up on it. Follow if you had your human design chart, I'd say follow your type and strategy and your authority, but essentially you're going to follow your intuition on this. And know that things may just be slower than you expect, right? So if you launch a book deal or you launch something between June 26th and August 27th, it may not be until after August 27th that you really start to see it pick up and, start rolling.
Okay.
But I wouldn't be dismayed at that. Maybe what I would do is just slow down my efforts to do it and make sure that everything is done correctly. Is there anything we forgot? Is there anything we want to add? Is there anything new that has come into our awareness about what we need in order to make this successful?
Okay. Yes.
Right?
Yes. Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. So, for a lot of people, there are things that you're already in process of doing. And if you're already in process before the retrograde, it's not so difficult. It's just a slower rollout, if you will. So if you expected, to sell 100 programs the first, month, maybe it's more like 10 to 20, right? That's the kind of, it's rolling out slower is all. The good news about that, though, it does give you, instead of sending out 100 of these programs and finding out there was this mistake and now you have to correct it 100 times, if it only goes out to 10 to 20, you've saved yourself some effort, right?
Sure.
So there is a sunny side to this.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah. There is definitely that. In the meantime, we can talk about some of the other planets that are turning retrograde and what it means when they're retrograde. Would you like to do that, or is there someone in the queue that needs a reading? Or
yeah, there's nobody that's called in. We can give the number again. It's 347-202-0232. If you would like a mini reading, please give us a call. 347-202-0232. Okay, so you can start with the other planets if you'd like.
Okay, great. So we already talked about Mars, so we're pretty clear about that. Well, there is another unique inner planet that is going retrograde this summer as well, only it'll be at the other end of the summer, and that is the planet Venus is also turning retrograde. On September 2nd, she will enter her retrograde zone and will turn retrograde October 5th at the very early part of the fall, and will be retrograde until November 16th, and doesn't leave the retrograde zone until December 17th. Now, when Venus is retrograde, she represents our money, she represents our values, she represents beauty and harmony and peace, and again, our work on the outer world to solidify values and to bring peace and harmony turns inward. So we'll have an opportunity to look at our values again, to really make sure that we are, as I say, walking your talk, right? Are you walking your talk and talking your walk? Because with Venus retrograde, you're going to be called to task on it the moment somebody thinks that there's any artifice in what you're doing. If they can see through it and they call you on it, it's because you weren't living in accordance to your values. You were not walking your talk. Venus retrograde is also not a very good time to get any kind of elective or cosmetic surgery done. So those of you out there, listen to these dates, September 2nd to December 17th, probably not a good time to get that nose job, that facelift, or that liposuction. Why? Because when Venus is retrograde in the body, she rules sort of the blood vessels and the flow of blood. And there can be more bleeding than they expect. The outcome of an elective surgery like a cosmetic surgery may not be what you expect. So reevaluate, look again at your values, make sure you're walking your talk and talking your walk. It will not be a good time to spend big money. If you have something big you want to spend money on this year, it is a great time before Venus goes retrograde to look at that. For example, let's say during a Venus retrograde you decide maybe your car clunks out on you and you need a new vehicle. You're going to have to do double duty diligence. Well, that's a triple D, double duty diligence to make sure that this product is what it's being represented to be. I was reading a story one time of someone who purchased a vehicle. This was a woman who had always wanted a particular type of BMW, and she somehow came into the money or could afford it at the time that Venus went retrograde. She purchased the said vehicle, and right from the moment that she started driving it, everything started going wrong with it. It turned out her dream car was a lemon. And to avoid that, we don't make big purchases under Venus retrograde because it may not be represented correctly to us, right? And I'm not saying that someone will purposely sell you a lemon, but the possibility exists that it was a problem that wasn't recognized. They maybe did a quick, check-in of the car when they bought it and, didn't really look for, any trouble. So try to keep your big expenditures to either before September 2nd or after December 17th. And, notice this is encompassing part of the Christmas holidays as well, right, where people are already beginning to Christmas shop. So this is not going to be one of those Christmases to spend a ton of money, right? Go with value over cost. So when you're thinking about a gift, and somebody, maybe you want to buy them this big expensive gaming system, but what if they valued something else, a book on something that they're passionate about rather than the big expensive game system? So go with value this Christmas and not with big bang for your buck, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Unless you want to start your shopping after December 17th. Which only gives you 8 days to get everything done. So shop value. Don't spend a lot of money. Now, life happens, Deb. Life happens sometimes. And if you find you have to spend money, or you have to do any of the things that I'm telling you aren't favored under any of these retrogrades. It's okay. Just do your due diligence. Check things out. Double, triple check everything. Make sure your values, that what you're doing, what you're saying is in alignment with your values. Make sure you're spending your money in alignment with your values, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're someone who cherishes the environment, don't spend your hard-earned bucks on companies that don't have that same value,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's an important thing for us to recognize. Venus is about values. Now, when Jupiter is retrograde, she points us to inner growth and inner evolution. Changes are happening on the inner dimensions. We are becoming the master of our inner world as opposed to mastery happening in the outer world, which kind of makes sense, right? Jupiter's luck, and she's a benefic planet. She blesses us in some way. Often that is happening in our outer world, but for 4 months out of the year, that becomes the inner world. And I can tell you, like, this happens to me all the time, where suddenly I get these ahas. I had one this morning just as I was going on air, and it made it very difficult for me to process what was happening for me because I had to be on task to be on air, right?
Right.
So I'm like, I can't wait to get get done with this and get done with my next reading so that I have some time before the radio show tonight to process what was going on, because all of this, all the growth and so forth is happening for us on the inner planes.
Mm-hmm.
When Saturn turns retrograde, it's our opportunity to rethink our goals or even to update our goals. You know how sometimes we set this 5-year goal, but then we never look at it again?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how many times I've done things like that. When Saturn is retrograde, pull out and dust off all of those goals, all of those dreams and things that aspirations and hopes and visions that you had. Pull out your vision board or make a new one because this is a great time to rethink all the goals and update the goals that you've already got in place. When Neptune is retrograde, it is a fabulous time for our psychic sensitivity. We become more intuitive. It's almost like something opens up for us, right, where we can really hear or sense or feel what's going on intuitively more powerfully than we can when it's in direct motion. We have more healing energy when Neptune is retrograde. So there's one little warning that I give people about Neptune in retrograde, and it's make sure you're paying attention to your intuition. Why? Because if you don't, when Neptune turns back to direct motion, you're going to regret it, because immediately you're probably going to look out at the world and go, oh my gosh, I knew I should have done that and I didn't. I knew I should have listened to myself, right? I should have paid attention to my intuition, and I didn't. So to avoid that, pay attention, listen, and act from intuition or according to your type and strategy for human design. When
is Neptune in retrograde?
Neptune is turning retrograde early in the summer in June. I want to say it's about June 8th, and it is retrograde then until late November or early December it may be this year. So we have a longer period of time with Neptune because it's an outer planet that we can be working with our ability to be intuitive, right? To listen to our instinct and pay attention, right? Pay attention.
Right. Okay.
I think there's something about intuition that people would find really interesting, and that is intuition, at least, from my experience and my learning from human design, is very powerful. It speaks in the moment that you need it, and it doesn't come back. It doesn't keep nagging at you. So either you act upon your intuition or you don't, and you find out later, I should have listened, right? So you're on the freeway going down, and something tells you, get off at the next exit. And you get off on that exit, and you totally miss the big accident that happened ahead of you. Mm-hmm. Or don't listen, and you go, but that's not my exit, and you start thinking, and boom, you're caught up in a long delay because of an accident, if not caught up in the accident, right? So one of the things that I tell people is intuition speaks powerfully in the moment. It doesn't come back and nag at you. Remember, I said, take that exit. Don't forget, take that exit. It isn't going to happen that way, right? It speaks powerfully in the moment, and you listen or you don't. While Neptune is retrograde, please listen, right? It will save you. It will create openings for you. You will find yourself in the right time at the right place with the right people for the right opportunities, and that's how Neptune works. With Pluto retrograde, we get to explore our shadows. And why would we want to do that? Well, the planet Pluto is about empowerment. And if we are constantly falling prey to our own fears, our own blocks, our own limitations, our own shadows, we're never going to be able to thrive in the way that we want to thrive. So Pluto allows us to explore those shadows when it's retrograde so that we can be empowered. Right? We can delve into those old things that have held us back. We can remove those toxic energies from our lives. We can do a whole lot about purifying our environment. It's a very mystical time when Pluto is retrograde. And Mercury we're very familiar with, right? Mercury retrograde is all about communication and contracts and our mind and having to slow down, right? Slowing down the mind. Uranus, when it is retrograde, Uranus is a rebel. It is often the planet of rebellion. And last week it just changed signs, by the way, for anybody who's still out there. Maybe you've been under a rock and you hadn't heard that Uranus, which takes 7 years to go through a sign, moved out of Aries, which it entered in 2011, and is now making its way into Taurus, where it will spend the next 7 years. And while Uranus is in Taurus, the rebellion is focused around our values and our money, because Taurus is ruled by Venus. Doesn't this sound familiar, right? The Venus retrograde, Uranus and Taurus stirring up Venus stuff. So Uranus, when it's in retrograde, is almost this rebel, either with a cause or is he the rebel without a cause, right? Because he really is often making a contrarian out of us, right? So we are just doing things to upset the apple cart because we just want to, right? Maybe we're bored, or maybe we just feel like being disruptive. So we want to watch those tendencies when Uranus is retrograde, right? Distancing ourselves from those destructive and disruptive people who bring chaos into our lives anyway, right? And Uranus will turn retrograde on August 7th. So it will be entering into our awareness here in the next few months. So I think I've covered all the planets, the major ones. And I have nothing more to say about it at the moment.
Well, we're down
Imagine
to
that.
3 minutes and 52 seconds.
Wow. So
well,
how about you?
It was
Do you have
perfect.
any questions? Yeah, it is perfect, right? It always is. It always turns out perfect.
Oh, well, that's a lot to know that, to plan your life around, when's a good time to do this or when's a good time to do that, is, having this information done, a chart and you call it the human dynamics.
Human design, yes.
Human design, yeah, to really kind of help plan your life. It looks like a really interesting way to do things, of when you can make decisions that would be better for you or not.
Absolutely. So Deb, you hit on something that's really important to give information wise to people. First of all, I was speaking in very broad terms today. Right, I'm telling you the basics, the big, broad picture of these planets in retrograde and what that means. But there's also the personal factor here. I don't know for you personally, unless I pull your chart, what is going to happen for you or what you should be looking out for. So it begs people to get a reading from either me or someone that does the same kind of work I do, someone that you trust. Have a reading. because it is the only way literally for you to really tap in and tune in to what's going on for you personally.
Yeah, that's terrific. So do you want to tell people how to get in touch with you?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. For anybody who would like to get a reading or have an astrology report done, go to my website at www.living-astrology.com. And hyphen is like the little dash, but not the underscore. So www.living-astrology.com. And if you just happen to like to hear a daily broadcast about astrology and human design, you can go to my Living Astrology Facebook page at 8 a.m. Pacific time every day, Monday through Friday anyway, where I do a daily astrology and human design update. We'd love to have you there interacting with us, asking questions, and learning what you can about the general things of astrology. And sometimes even we do a couple of charts where we can, get a little more personalized. But for the most part, people get a reading. If you have any questions about, what's going on energetically with you, you won't regret it.
That sounds awesome. And thank you so much for what you do and to bring your talent to Angel Heart Radio and give people the opportunities to learn and to get into a relationship with you and building a chart for them. So it's really been an honor and a privilege to have you here today, Janet, that I'm able to fill in for Annette and to actually spend time with you.
Yeah, and you did a great job. Perfect, job. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on Angel Heart Radio. I love being here with Annette at the fourth Tuesday, my Tuesday of the month. It's her fourth Wednesdays of the month. I appreciate it so much.
Well, we know that our audience loves you too. So thank you again.
All right.
When in doubt, thank you. When in doubt, never underestimate the power of prayer. You are being listened to and heard throughout the universe, and it always responds with infinite and eternal love. Remember to go inside and listen through your heart for the whispers of heaven. I love you, and God bless you.
You've been listening to another fabulous program on Angel Heart Radio. Our goal is to remind you of how much you matter in the world and to let you know that we appreciate who you are in the world. You can check out who's on, when we're on, and who our guests are at angelheartradio.com. Everything is there. It's all just one click away. Angel Heart Radio programs are powerful tools to help you in your life and your life experience. They are not intended, nor should they, be used to replace your medical or legal advice. The views expressed by hosts, co-hosts, callers, guests, and associates should not be construed as advice from Angel Heart Radio.